Hi, I'm Jeff Holden. Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network. Our purpose and passion is to highlight a nonprofit organization in each weekly episode, giving that organization an opportunity to tell their story in their words to better inform and educate the respective communities they serve, as well as provide one more tool for them to share their message to constituents and donors. Our goal is to help build stronger communities through shared voices and to both encourage and support the growth of local nonprofit organizations through podcasting. Thanks to our founding partners for their foresight in helping us transform the way conversations start. CapTrust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations. Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations creating integrated communications committed to improving lives. And Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. We all know what kids love to eat, don't we? And we know that if there was a way to make healthy eating more enjoyable, even fun, they would be more likely to eat better. Well, think about this for a minute. What if they actually had a hand in planting, watching, and then harvesting their own food? Then we could acknowledge that kids love to eat what they grow. Imagine a child who's never eaten a fresh carrot, even better yet, a fresh carrot they pulled out of the ground after watching it grow. Seeing that twisted orange root-like item being pulled from the ground and then cleaning it up and taking a bite and experiencing that slightly sweet flavor, the grainy texture of something that student actually watched grow from a seed. Now that's exciting. That's also exactly the purpose of the organization my guest today gets to run. Salvador Ramirez is executive director of Yolo Farm to Fork. He's a first-generation Mexican-American who has served in the Peace Corps and has a passion for growing food. His interest in philanthropy is leading him to plant the seeds for a better life for children and garnering the necessary support to do so. The mission of Yolo Farm to Fork is to help children understand where good food comes from, develop a taste for healthy eating, and experience the garden as a living laboratory that inspires lifelong learning and career goals. Sal believes that children learn lessons that last a lifetime when they have the opportunity to grow their own food, visit local farms, and to meet farmers and see how crops are grown, harvest, and help prepare fresh, local, seasonal produce, turn food into compost to replenish their gardens, and integrate these experiences into their everyday school lessons. Salvador Ramirez, welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast Network.
Thank you. Happy to be here. It's an honor.
We're excited to have you. First thing I have to ask is, you have a pretty interesting history. How did you end up at Yolo Farm to Fork?
Well, that's a great question. So, not the traditional straightforward path to being an ED for a nonprofit. Lots of turns and winding to get here, but come from a family that is, we traditionally cook food together, celebrate food with each other, and that comes from my grandparents traveling from Mexico to the U.S. through it's called the Bracero Program, and so it was a visitor farmer program, and so farming is in my family's bloodline, you can say, and didn't think I would end up doing work that leads farming efforts, but let's say the first sort of foundational moment for me that led me to think that I could be of service in this capacity was when I was serving in the Peace Corps and I was teaching English as a second language, fourth grade through university level. And my students actually were coming from families that were farmer families themselves. And they were struggling to learn because they couldn't think and they didn't have proper nutrition. And I realized this when I noticed they were stealing my lunch.
Oh, jeez.
And so
because it was a better lunch than what they had.
Exactly. And so I realized, even though I was a volunteer and I was still, having so many more resources compared to what they had, I had to give back in a way. And I knew that from that particular moment, I had to find a way back to doing work with lining up kids and nutrition and making education and leadership foundational for kids that just do not have those resources and opportunities.
And you did Peace Corps as an adult, not the usual routine of right out of either high school or college.
I did Peace Corps 1 month after graduating college.
Okay.
Yeah, and when I came back and was working on the East Coast and trying to figure out what to do next, Peace Corps actually was a great help to me to fund my master's. And while I was doing my master's, I pitched my story of my Peace Corps experience to a publisher in New York, and that's the story I published about my Peace Corps service.
Okay. And where did you do your Peace Corps service?
I was in Kazakhstan, so it's Central Asia. They call it the steppe. It's just flat as woodland, sort of desert temperature, and the main things that were grown there were rice and wheat.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was not ready for the 30-degree below winters, so.
It had to be an amazing experience, but what an experience in terms of service to bring back now into the community.
Yes.
It's almost a holistic thing. You know, you come from a farming agriculture family, big cooking, and then you go over and do the service part in Kazakhstan. And here you are now back at Farm to Fork, Yolo Farm to Fork.
Yeah, exactly. And so when the opportunity came about to throw my hat in as the executive director for Yolo Farm to Fork, I lunged at it because I wanted to work with this population. I wanted to work with kids in schools coming from schools that were Title I schools, so disadvantaged schools, and I wanted to also include an element in the education piece of garden education, something that could allow these kids to have not just the foundational practical learning they need, but the opportunity to bring life, so create life. And that comes with responsibility, that comes with leadership, that just, there's so many fringe benefits to garden education, much more than just having proper nutrition.
And you're starting to get us into the organization a little bit. Tell me about the organization. It originated when and its purpose. So you're in the Yolo area. You predominantly serve Yolo County, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And predominantly in school systems.
Yes.
Go ahead and take it.
Yeah, so about 12 years ago, a group of really involved community leaders and educators felt that there was an opportunity through some grants that came from USDA to root the elementary education in garden education as the basis for starting to ameliorate the problems that they were seeing at that time, which was obesity rates were up for kids, and low scores, specifically in STEM, were abound. And so this group of community leaders and educators got this grant, started this work, and were able to figure out curriculum that use STEM, so a hypothesis and testing your hypothesis and seeing how it works out with the children, and the program just grew and grew and grew. So smash cut to now, we are 12 years into doing this program, and the kids are doing much more than just putting their finger in the soil, planting,
sticking the seed in.
Yeah, putting their little tiny finger, sticking the seed in, patiently watching the produce grow. We build on that now and do cooking in the garden. So the kids are actually harvesting food that they watched for weeks to months grow, and then they're learning life skills in the harvesting piece, the prepping piece, and the cooking piece, because they can go back to their families and their friends and actually show them how this very, very small seed is now something that is keeping them all happy and healthy and alive. So we've really expanded on where we began 12 years ago, and it's a great, I think, comprehensive and robust program that we have going now.
So it's a formalized curriculum,
Mm-hmm.
and you go into the schools. How does the garden look at the schools? I'm sure it's varying by size, based on the size and the
Yeah.
facility of the school, what kind of land they have.
Yeah. So essentially the easiest way to describe it is the range goes from a school might have as little as 2 garden beds all the way up to, I think one is up to 20.
Oh, wow.
And that, as you said, it depends on the size of the school. Each one of those schools serves a different type of population. So we craft and tailor those garden programs to the kinds of demographics for those schools. And so one I can call out in Woodland is called Dingle Elementary. And that one is the only elementary school in all of California that actually grows wheat. There's 5 different kinds of wheat growing, and the kids plant, harvest, and then now cook various things with the different kinds of wheat. And so the first partner, Jennifer Siebel Newsom, came out 2 years ago to visit that garden and just was blown away by the work that these little kids were doing.
Do they make bread out of it too? Do they get all
Bread.
the way too?
Oh yeah, bread,
amazing.
pasta, and even making the base for dough to have pizza dough made out of wheat. So, that school is plugged in. They all know what they're doing at this point.
They can actually go all the way to a pizza, because then they can grow the tomatoes and some of the spices that go in the the
Yeah.
sauce, and
They could do a veggie.
yeah,
Not the meat yet, but they
that's
could do a
okay. Yeah,
veggie.
we don't even grow in cattle and
Yeah.
and pork,
Yeah.
pigs.
But so, so to get to your question, so we, in these 12 years that we've been in operation, have built 68 school gardens, and now we are in the process of wrapping up our 69th. And
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's a lot of work.
so we rely heavily on donations. So we have people that we go to source the lumber, source the mulch, source the compost, and then where the school district can come in to help with retrofitting. Certain parts of the infrastructure like irrigation, that's always helpful. But if they don't, we come in and do it. And at this point, with all the school gardens we've established and the ones we are continuing to forecast that we will be working in throughout Yolo County, the number is large of the kids that we serve. So at this 68 garden number, we have served 10,000 kids.
That's amazing.
So it's great for the small team that we have to be able to do that, but it is part and parcel because of the amazing community engagement and the organization we put behind making those resources funnel into the areas that we know that those schools need.
So getting back to the classroom situation, is there a grade level that you work with?
Yeah, so we primarily work with elementary school age kids. So in Yolo County, there's obviously different cities. Within those cities, there are different. There's a different school district. So some school districts will name elementary as K through 6. Some will name it as K through 7. So yeah, it depends on which one's the district we're in.
How about the teachers? What's the feedback that you get from the teachers and the kids' experience in the whole process?
Oh yeah, so it's actually kind of interesting to see how we are building up teachers when we newly establish a garden to be naysayers to now then being the huge advocates for the program, because they love being able to nestle in so many pieces of the curriculum that they have to hit to meet the standards in California, the teaching standards. into the garden programming. So I'll give you an example. If one school all of a sudden has a bunch of kale that's growing, and it's, let's say, first graders who don't want to eat kale, are not interested in kale. The one teacher in particular told us, okay, we had all this kale, we didn't know what to do. We found recipes for making kale chips and making kale chips that were flavored differently. And the kids loved it, especially because now they learned vocabulary on describing the different tastes because
Sure.
of the different seasonings. And they, in conjunction with us, built such a great, bevy of recipes that we were able to share with other schools, and how they injected in all of this vocabulary that they needed to teach anyway,
Sure.
just from having kids harvest the kale
And that's
and
just
cook
in
it.
vocabulary. I noticed on the website that there's really some STEM
Oh yeah.
activity going in here in a pretty big degree, especially upper classes,
Oh yeah.
with the the science and the technology of the watering and the process, and how are you going to fertilize, or what do you use for fertilizer?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure all organic, and how do you make
Yeah.
it grow better? And tell us a little bit about that.
So one of the things that I think is super interesting about how we sort of ramp it up at the age increase. So like fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, we really are using what was foundational for them in the younger years when they had exposure to the school garden. Now they're doing stuff that is just a little more sophisticated. So the STEM piece, when I was mentioning the hypothesis, so one that always gets these kids is when they have a hypothesis on how they think the carrot will grow, and then they're testing it out, and then they actually harvest it, especially the fifth and sixth graders, they will be super happy or super confused or kind of upset. And I'll tell you why some of them are upset.
Uh-huh.
Because what they thought would look like what they see in the grocery store did not come out.
Oh, those carrots can come
And
out looking real different
they
when you
look
pull them out
crazy
of the
sometimes.
ground.
And that's part of the things that I love about the STEM piece to this education, is that not always in life will things come out how you expect them to. And that's where that beautiful friction between science and how you use that science to inform your life, it starts at that carrot lesson.
Yes.
Because these kids now are faced with, what do I do when faced with being completely upset or confused and even feeling bamboozled
Uh-huh.
that it didn't come out how they thought? So they could be upset, or they could learn to persevere through it and ask the questions. Did this grow this way because there was a deficiency of nutrients in the soil? And then keep on investigating. Did this happen because there wasn't enough water? Did this happen for A, B, and C reasons? And one fourth grader is in a particular school is coming to mind right now, was so just like activated by this particular carrot lesson that he went and spoke at a PTA meeting, and then went and spoke at a local elected official meeting to say how upset he was that there wasn't the proper shade, there wasn't the proper infrastructure at the school to do this for him to see the carrot grow the way that it was supposed to. So these kids really get like pumped up. And you wouldn't necessarily think that when you're creating a STEM lesson for carrots, but this is what happens.
Sure. And I like the analogy to life.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always going to turn out as you think it should or would or could.
Yeah, it's all social emotional learning that gets nestled in, because it's much more than just growing food.
Right.
You know?
What are some of the challenges that you have in the process? And 68 schools is a lot of schools to stay in touch with. But overall, what are some of the challenges that happen and occur in just the overall process of farming And 68 different locations.
Yeah. So that number 68, so that represents the school gardens we've established. It doesn't represent the number we are currently in.
Got it.
So
Okay.
the way that we sort of work is that when we've gotten those schools ready with their garden beds, fully ready with, all the teacher lessons, and now they have agency over their garden and their lessons and what they want to do. When they're ready to take it over and say to us, "You did a great job of rearing us. Now we're ready to be adults."
Good.
We say, "Thank you for telling us. Call us if you need help,"
Right.
because sometimes that happens. So as a nonprofit, one of the things to think about, especially in a leadership role, is um, evolving your mission. But the thing is, with what we do, the mission rooted in garden education will always be beyond what we established in the beginning. We're making those gardens in all those schools that are there now. Once we do that, it doesn't mean our nonprofit stops. It means we now move on to the next thing. We evolve to build and enhance what we created years ago.
How many gardens do you actively manage then in any given point in time?
So in this, we're doing summer camps now, and we're managing those. In this coming school year, we will be at 12 gardens.
Okay.
And one community small farm.
That seems more manageable to me.
Especially given the size of our team.
And we're going to get there in just a second. So your Yolo Farm to Fork, what is your geography? What is your northernmost, southernmost, eastern, western boundary?
Sure. So all of Yolo County is, and I'm not sure if you visited or any of the listeners have visited, but it is very rural area, spotted with an amazing research institution, UC Davis, and a beautiful, small, but mighty and growing West Sacramento to sort of bookend the region. So we've done school gardens in all cities in all of Yolo County. So some of those cities that people might be familiar with, Clarksburg,
sure,
where all people go to enjoy the wine.
Bogle Winery's there.
Bogle Winery is there. They're amazing. And Winters is another one that is a small and growing region. And we, like I mentioned before, we tailor the types of gardens to the region we're in based off of, what the parents do. So, for example, in Woodland, a lot of the parents in the Title I schools are either migrant farm workers or come from farm working and ag specific industries. And so we know that the kids already know the basics. They already know the tomatoes and cucumbers and all that. So we try to get funky things. We'll do the okra. We'll do the things that they just probably have not seen yet. One example is there's a purple tomato that has now been, making its way around, and that's one that we're excited to try out with the kids. The whole region of Yolo is where we operate in, and I think I mentioned before, primarily in elementary schools.
We'll be right back to learn more about Yolo Farm to Fork right after these few brief messages from the people making this program possible. I was in the media business for over 35 years and had the great privilege of working with Runyon Saltzman, RSE, Marketing, Advertising, and Public Relations. We collaborated on many different campaigns, but their commitment to the nonprofit sector hasn't changed since their founder, Gene Runyon, started the agency. Over many years and many campaigns, Runyon Saltzman has been committed to improving lives by tackling California's most challenging issues. Guided by research-informed strategies and insightful, creative solutions, RSE develops innovative communications campaigns that raise awareness, educate, and reduce stigma in diverse communities throughout our state and beyond. To learn more about RSE, visit rs-e.com.
Hello, this is Scott Thomas with Cap Trust in our Sacramento office. I specialize in working with local nonprofits and associations. Annually, we survey private and public nonprofit organizations across the country to better understand challenges they see in today's environment. In our more recent survey, we heard concerns about proper board governance, mission aligned investment, and how to implement alternative investments. If you would like a copy of the survey or to discuss your organization, look me up, Scott Thomas at captrust.com.
I'm thrilled to have Western Health Advantage partnering with us as they do so much to support so many nonprofit agencies in our community. As a truly local health plan, you'll find individual and family options, employer options, plans for CalPERS and Medicare Advantage. From medical services to pharmacy, health and wellness support, as well as behavioral health care, Western Health Advantage has a plan that fits what you need. As an employer, for profit or nonprofit business, individual or family, you can find more at westernhealth.com. And now we're back for more discussion with Salvador Ramirez on how it is that Yolo Farm to Fork works to collaborate with other organizations right in their own backyard. One of the things that we talk about in every episode is the ability to collaborate. And
Yeah.
you have a monster university in your backyard that happens to be agriculturally oriented, world leader in so many developments in UC Davis. How do you work with the university?
Well, so UC Davis is an amazing resource for us, and part of our capacity is built on our use of College Corps interns. The majority of our College Corps interns come from UC Davis, and a small portion of them come from Sac State.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about every year when we put a call out for interns through College Corps, again, a majority coming from UC Davis, we don't limit the majors that these kids are allowed to apply to us from. So we'll take someone who's from a marketing study
Mm-hmm.
and use them to not only learn the same things the other interns are doing, farming and what have you, but using their skills to help us. So we just launched a lavender run. One of our interns that came from the region through College Corps was a marketing intern, and she was taking a class in visual communication. She created all of our collateral material for the lavender run and helped us launch this huge, massive effort, and did an amazing job. And so we see that there's a huge benefit from those institutions of higher learning around us, and not limiting them to their focused area of study being only in ag. We want everyone, because it mirrors what the kids also have interest in. They might not have cared about ag in the beginning, but we surely get them excited by the end of the year. It's the same with our interns.
And they can see things. They see things differently by an exposure to all the business elements that you're dealing with.
Oh, yeah.
If you get little T-shirts for them, or if it's pins or stickers or whatever it is, that's the marketing piece of it.
Exactly. And, I mentioned this a little earlier on. There's practical life skills that come about with farm work. And it's sort of it's a dying skill. There are, not to get political, but there are so many places around the U.S. that are cutting arts and enrichment to this day. And so we are so lucky and privileged in this part of the world to be able to have the buy-in from the school districts, to be able to continue this type of work that can't really happen with a normal
traditional classroom curriculum.
Yeah, traditional
right. It's
classroom
just too much.
that we see it today. And so this is a great way to retrofit that. And I was saying this because the interns are also learning those practical life skills, the common sense stuff that people just don't get if they don't do farming.
Right. I mean, if you don't get your hands dirty, you're never gonna know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's you have to have appreciation for that, because
Exactly.
that is a requisite part of agriculture.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the operation itself. How many employees do you have?
So we, small but mighty, just like me. So we have 2 full-time, we have 3 part-time, and then we have a bevy of interns
I was going
and
to ask,
volunteers. Yeah,
how many
so
do you have
so
roughly in terms of the interns? And
sure. So for College Core, we are looking at getting 7 for this coming year.
wonderful.
And now we're also going to be doing what's called Climate Core. And Climate Core, so I'll just briefly give you the difference. So College Core kids are undergrads that have dedicated 10 hours a month to a nonprofit. And they get, they have a certain number of hours they have to meet by the end of the year. So that's great. We can plug them into the school gardens. The Climate Core, those are 40 hours a week, and they can do much more beyond just some of the day-to-day things that we have our interns do. So they're allowed to do some of the administrative pieces. They're allowed. So it's more of a job readiness.
Wow, 40 hours a week?
For Climate Core.
Good for you guys.
Yeah, and so coming from the world of working in the corps, so I did Peace Corps. I saw the amazing benefits of that. So using AmeriCorps volunteers, which are the College Corps, and then Climate Corps, it's volunteers is how we run everything here.
Yeah, it sounds like it, because you are lean, very lean.
Yes, and then we also have made an effort to establish our relationships with all of the service-oriented organizations throughout Yolo County. So, Kiwanis, Rotary, what have you, we go to them when we know that we're going to build a new garden and they're looking for a project. We make it work. We plug it in. We go out and ask corporate sponsors at times for, maybe a sponsorship for something like the Lavender Run. And they might say, well, we're tapped out for the year, but we can send volunteers on a monthly basis to a school garden right by our facility. So we make it work, and we don't turn down help.
No, I would imagine not.
Yeah.
Well, you're doing so much with so little. I mean, that's amazing. And you have a sustaining element to it, too, because the schools don't drop off once you've left them to their own devices, so to speak. And you still have this integration in the community that stays in touch as would stay in touch as well, I would imagine, throughout the course of that garden.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about funding.
Sure.
How are you funded?
So it's a nice combination. We were talking about pizza earlier. I look at it like a pizza. So
You're making me hungry. We're talking about fruits and vegetables and stuff coming out of the ground and carrots, which I love.
Well, it's also lunchtime.
But it is. People don't know we're recording this between 11 and noon. And those kale chips sounded great too, by the way.
So, all right. So picture a pizza. So 1/4 of it is grants. Then we got a couple of slices through foundations. We're funded partly by individuals and businesses, but the donations and sponsorships piece is sort of like the biggest chunk of it. So we are always trying to, I mentioned before, those relationships that we have. We're always trying to make sure that they don't stay static relationships, which is hard to do because at times a business who's a corporate sponsor might have shifting priorities, and that might not align with what they were currently doing to help support our efforts. And so in that, we don't take for granted the sponsorships we do have. We actively look for more sponsorships because we think that our mission is vital to be amplified in other channels that these sponsors can share about the work that we're doing, and also a great thing for them to also put out into the world that they are mission aligned with this. So it's a win-win.
Well, there's no better place than to start with the children, because the children take it home.
Yeah.
And then the parents see it, and whomever those sponsors are, it's a good feeling. And if they have a tangible product or service that the community can use, it tends to be engaged by those families who want to give back to what the sponsor's been giving to their kids.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we appreciate all of that.
And we love that the kids become authorities on, tomatoes,
Yes.
or something that we all as adults are like, okay, relax. But this is like the first time. And it's through those corporate sponsors and other sponsors that that reality is able to exist. Making those kids excited is thanks to them.
Yep.
So,
and I can only imagine the thrill from a sponsor's perspective as well, because we've all been in those situations where you're helping somebody either at a school or a school district or your own kid's school. Just seeing the kids engage and understand is so rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that we listen to what we hear our sponsors tell us about, hey, have you considered something that might teach the kids about their climate future? Or have you considered something that might teach the kids, much more beyond how to grow a salad, but how to, expand it to do all of these other things? And so we listen to it, we incorporate it, and we report back to them, and we say, hey, that was a great suggestion. These are the results. This is what we got. And when you look at the test scores related to what it was you were just suggesting, look at their understanding here. Thank you so much for even starting that dialogue and that conversation piece for us to then expand it and iterate on it. Because, we can't, we're not naive enough to think that we are the authority on garden education.
Right.
Other people can teach us stuff too, and you have to have an open ear to it,
including those children.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If money were no object, right? I love this question, and it came to me from somebody that I recently met with. She goes, "This would be a great question." I said, "You're right. If money were no object, what would it look like to you? What would the organization look like?"
Definitely securing long-term funding would build capacity and allow us to expand beyond, I mentioned before, we're teaching the planting, we're teaching the harvesting, we've introduced the cooking element, and that's a great capstone piece. But there's so much more to this. This is just like scratching the surface of garden education. So long-term funding for stability would be amazing, just to be able to grow our programming and have that longer runway to do this important work. But while we rely on volunteers, I think that even more volunteers would be great. There's never enough volunteer help that any organization could say, turn them away for, even if it's a huge nonprofit. The power that bringing on volunteers does for sharing your mission and extremely blowing up and amplifying, that work that you're called to do, a big piece of it is through the volunteer help. And so we always welcome more volunteers. And then if there's really no, money were no limit, it would be kind of interesting to see what a culinary, let's call it like a culinary sort of hub spot or culinary makerspace might look like for garden education in Yolo. Because I don't know if a lot of the listeners know this, but Yolo County is where a majority of the food that is eaten in Sacramento is grown.
Mm-hmm.
And so to lean on the fact that this region is not just somewhere that is exporting food out, but if there's a way to involve kids in some capacity where they're trying new recipes out, trying all of these like creative um, channels to make these meals that we all need and love and enjoy, how amazing would that be to come from a kid, and to come from an area where here in the Sacramento region it's mainly eaten, but it's actually now connected to the sister county. That would be amazing to see.
I'm going to share that with other people in this space as we go, because I think it's a fabulous idea. A culinary makerspace for kids.
Yeah.
Where they get to play and experience and try all these different things and really enjoy the cooking process, realizing they're doing it with great food.
Mm-hmm. Healthy food.
And healthy food, yes. And it's not chips and drinks and processed stuff, which so many of our children, especially in those schools, because the parents just don't know any better either.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to start someplace.
Yeah, and the access to is a big thing. I mentioned that many of the kids in the Yolo region come from families that work in agriculture. Not a lot of those kids actually eat that food that their parents are growing.
Right.
And so then you look at, there's areas that have food deserts. There's not places where these kids could go to, and their parents could go to in a way that is not cost prohibitive for them to have access to this food. So having a culinary makerspace sort of institute for the kids where it's like carte blanche, they can have fun, get dirty, and literally throw spaghetti at the wall.
Right.
I think that would be amazing.
I do too. Great idea. Now back to reality.
Yeah.
What is the greatest need that you see?
Sure. So what I was mentioning before with securing long-term financial stability, that is something that obviously we, for the reasons said before, we would love to have that. And one of the ways that we think we can get there is we've piloted this program through the Charlie Cart Project, where we're able to bring these mobile kitchen apparatuses to the garden so the kids can actually do the cooking in the garden. We know that to get even more buy-in, so we have great buy-in from school districts, but we want more buy-in from businesses, local leaders, research institutions, institutions of higher learning, to see that what we're doing with these Charlie Carts in these schools is having such an impact that it would be not smart to not pour some of their resources into the work that we're doing. So for us, one of the ways that I think we can get to securing the long-term financial stability is actually getting Charlie Carts in those schools that we are working in, because we need to prove through, we piloted this program, we need to prove now through doing that over this many years, this is what we can now effectively say, this is the impact that these have had on the kids.
I would imagine at some point you'll see these kids coming up through our restaurant system too in the greater Sacramento area.
Yeah.
And they can reference this. So just for the benefit of the listener, explain the Charlie Cart, because I'm not sure everybody understands.
Sure. So to do that, I have to explain who started the Charlie Cart Project. So Alice Waters is a foundational piece to the whole food movement, the whole food space, about really they call it now the slow food movement. And it's about sourcing your food locally, taking your time in the preparation so that builds the appreciation of what you're about to eat, and making sure that it's all healthy. And so that was Alice Waters' whole ethos. What she did...
Of restaurant fame.
Yeah, of restaurant fame, Chez Panisse. Shout out to Berkeley. And so actually, that restaurant, uh, if you've never been, if the readers or the listeners and readers have never been, um, it helps fund the Edible Schoolyard Project, which is in Berkeley and also in Stockton. And that is the basis of our program
Mm-hmm.
in doing garden education. We don't have a restaurant that we
Well,
then,
we get that maker space going.
maybe
We'll
maybe
eventually
that'll
get
be
there,
the
right?
next step, right? But we've picked the pieces of the Edible Schoolyard Project to inform how our nonprofit work is going to then use that as a baseline to operate from.
Mm-hmm.
And so Alice Waters, in all of this amazing work she's done with the restaurant Chez Panisse, with the Edible Schoolyard Project in Berkeley and in Stockton, then was one of the founders for the Charlie Cart Project. So bringing it now back to what we're hoping to do with our work is introduce these Charlie Carts into the schools we work in. So the Charlie Cart itself comes with 50 different curriculum that help the teachers immensely because there's not enough time
They
in
don't
the
have to
day,
plan it.
and they don't have to plan
yeah.
it. It's right there, and it couples nicely with what we do because we then create the crop plan for their school. If they want to do these lessons, great. We'll make sure that you have what you need to actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
And many of the schools in the region are not just English speaking, there are dual immersion schools. And so we've translated those curriculum into different languages to then help actually make it culturally specific to those school children. And then the other amazing part that the Charlie Cart Project enables us to do is each Charlie Cart itself, it's mobile, so it moves around in the garden. It comes with everything that you can think of you would need to actually make food. So it's got a blender, it's got a burner, it's got all the cutlery is child safe, so the kids can cut the carrots
Right.
and actually like prepare these amazing meals fresh right there, ready to go. And all the lessons can be done in under an hour. So it's an amazing, quick thing. We love it. We piloted it with our field trips in the spring. We're doing it with our field trips now in the summer, and we're going to continue doing it in the coming academic school year.
Wonderful. I love the concept. And it's kind of a cute little name when you think of kids and students. And it's the Charlie Cart. Where's their Charlie Cart? And you try to explain that at home when the little student comes home and the child's explaining to mom, with the Charlie Cart, Mom, we need a Charlie Cart.
Yeah.
I'm sure it is part of that conversation at some point once they're exposed to it. How many do you have?
So we were able to get our first one in February. We're only
it's
at
really
one.
new to you.
It's
Congratulations.
very new. We got our first one in February, and that was thanks to the Rayleigh's Foundation. We applied for a grant for them to help us fund doing our field trips, so that it's no cost to the schools. And the amazing part of this grant through them was they not only helped fund 10 school trips, they got us our first Charlie Cart. And so the Rayleigh Foundation, which we call our Rayleigh's family, is amazing because we were able to then, in piloting during the spring, the use of the Charlie Cart in the field trips, build our field trips to not just be in our small community farm, but then to take the kids after the morning portion into a Rayleigh's store, go into the back room, learn about how all the meat is prepared, how all the food is packaged, how to read the labels, the nutritional labels, which is key, and then now have an understanding of, well, you knew that food was here ready for purchase, but in the morning you just learned how it gets there.
Right.
Because you planted the food yourself and you harvested it, and now you see it sold. And it's a perfect capstone piece, which we love that Rayleigh's was able to provide that opportunity for us.
Well, they're fabulous community partners in so many ways. We had Chelsea Miner on here talking about food for families.
Yeah, and I think Zoe
Edwards, yes. Yeah, they did a fabulous job, just a really, really good job.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great explanation all the way around. And I really appreciate, I can see the enthusiasm for what you do in the conversation. I know you got your hands full.
Yeah.
And it's it's a process, but I personally am a proponent of health. I really want to see everybody take care of themselves, and it just prevents so many things. But that doesn't happen without education, and it has to start with the education first. And you're kind of tying the two things together in so many ways at youth.
Yeah.
So maybe we can course correct this direction we've gotten off tangent on with sugars and fats and too much consumption of the wrong things.
Yeah.
By educating those students and then seeing them come into the community and seeing them grow up and have an expectation that's different than the previous generation.
Yeah, and what I love is also being able to take these new batch of kids coming out of the pandemic and reintegrate them into socialization, reintegrate them into it's okay to make mistakes, and get those anxiety levels down, because many of those kids were just learning from a iPad. Now they're learning from the garden.
Oh, it's a whole different thing to get your hands dirty than to see it a picture. You just don't realize.
Yeah.
You just don't realize. Well, Sal, I think the work you're doing is really incredible, and it's unique. It's not the same as some of the other food services that we've seen, all providing for the community, but very, very different when it comes out of the ground through the student to the family, and then back into the classroom to where they can have a conversation about it and learn about it in so many different ways. So thank you for what you're doing, and I'm starving.
Everyone go out and eat some healthy pizza after this.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, it was an honor, and you asked some great questions, so thank you for having me and allowing this platform for me to share Yolo Farm to Fork's work. So thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If what you heard moved you, please reach out to that organization and do what you can to help. If you like and appreciate what we're doing to support local nonprofits, please give us a positive review, subscribe, and share. If you're a nonprofit with an interest in participating in an episode, you can reach me at jeff@hearmenowstudio.com. If you have a need for the services or products our sponsors offer, please reach out to them. Cap Trust, fiduciary advice for endowments and foundations, Runyon Saltzman Incorporated, RSE, marketing, advertising, and public relations creating integrated communications committed to improving lives, and Western Health Advantage, a full-service healthcare plan for individuals, employer groups, and families. The Nonprofit Podcast Network is a production of, is recorded at, and edited by Hear Me Now Studio.